March 6, 1945, Cologne. A German tanker leans into a cracked periscope, breath fogging the glass. Smoke, rubble, then a silhouette with a gun that looks impossibly long. He whispers, "Das ist kein Sherman." 18 seconds later, his world erupts. Cathedral Square is a bowl of echoes. Shells have carved the skyline into fangs. Somewhere behind the haze, a camera from the U.S. Signal Corps is rolling. And in that lens, history is about to pivot. For years, German heavy armor owned the battlefield's first and last word. When the Tiger I debuted near Leningrad in 1942, it felt less like a tank and more like a moving fortress. Its 88mm KWK-36 gun killed at distances where most enemies couldn't even see it clearly. Its frontal armor, thick, flat, unafraid, turned Allied rounds into sparks. Crews climbed inside and felt untouchable. The American M4 Sherman was never built for that duel. Designed in 1941 against Panzer IIIs and early Panzer IVs, it was fast, reliable, and produced by the tens of thousands. But against Tigers, and later the sleek, hard-hitting Panther with its high-velocity 75, Sherman crews learned a brutal rule: survive by flanking, swarming, or getting close enough to risk everything. The nickname Ronson stung because once hit, too many burned. By 1944, the math shaped the tactics. German tankers used high ground, hedgerows, and long, open fields. Hit first. Hit far. Hit hard. Allied reports overflowed with tiger fever. Every shadow misidentified as the cat that haunted their nightmares. But 4,000 miles away, the story was already changing. In Detroit and across 22 states, American engineers and line workers were building something different under wartime secrecy. The T-26 program, a crash effort to deliver a true heavy tank. It would emerge as the M26 Pershing, 46 tons of low, sloped steel, a broad cast turret, and, at its heart, the 90mm M3 gun. That weapon hurled a 24-pound armor-piercing shell at blistering velocity. With standard APC ammunition, it could threaten a Tiger's front at typical combat distances. With tungsten-cored HVAP, even thicker plates were no sanctuary. For crews used to watching shells bounce, the promise felt like rain on a drought-cracked field. The Pershing was not just firepower. It was a philosophy shift. Ammunition stowage and internal layout emphasized survivability. The powered traverse whipped the turret through a full circle in seconds. Optics and gun controls gave American gunners precision they had long envied. The Ford Gaff V8, cranking out about 500 horsepower, wasn't glamorous, but it was dependable. Mechanics could keep it running. Crews could trust it to move when it mattered. Secrecy cloaked everything. Manuals locked down. Photographs forbidden. The first batches crossed the Atlantic under tarps and nondescript labels. Even many sailors had no idea what they were transporting. Cologne, 3:47 p.m., March 6th. In the rubble, a German Panther idles near the ruined hotel facade. Its commander has the range. Through German glass, clear, cold, unblinking, he studies the American tank creeping into view. It looks familiar, but wrong. Lower stance, bigger turret, a barrel that could skewer the square. He fires first. The German round slaps the American's frontal arc. It should be a kill. It isn't. The shell deflects, showering sparks into the gray afternoon. Inside the American tank, Eagle 7, 3rd Armored Division. Voices snap tight. Commander Staff Sergeant Robert Early calls the shot. Gunner Clarence Smoyer lifts the Panther's mantlet into his sight picture. Crosshairs settle. Breath held. Trigger squeezed. The 90mm punches in. Ammunition cooks off. Fire blooms. In seconds, the Panther is a furnace. The Signal Corps camera catches it in stark black and white. One of the most famous armored duels ever filmed. For the men in American uniforms, it is vindication. For German crews who had believed Allied tanks couldn't hurt them from the front, it's a revelation with teeth. To grasp how shocking that moment felt, Rewind the war's armored logic. The Tiger changed expectations the day it rolled out. Its 88mm, originally crafted to swat aircraft, turned tank duels into long-range executions. Panthers added speed and sloped armor that tricked incoming rounds into glancing failure. German optics, Zeiss clarity, made distant silhouettes into crisp targets. Training emphasized first-shot kills. On open ground, the Wehrmacht wrote lessons in smoke and distance. The Allies adapted, brutally and quickly. In Italy, artillery and air power smothered Tiger positions. In Normandy, hedgerows forced knife-fighting range where Shermans could get around the sides. Britain shoehorned the 17-pounder into a Sherman to create the Firefly, a feared Tiger killer, but scarce, and often singled out. American crews begged for more punch. Reports piled up. We need heavier armor and bigger guns. The answer was already on the rails. The Pershing's journey to the front read like a spy novel. False shipping codes, night loading, crews training behind fences at Fort Knox. By February 1945, a handful reached combat units, quietly integrated, one per task force, waiting for the right moment. Orders were simple. Don't waste them. Use them when German heavy armor appears. Cologne was that moment. What makes this duel so important isn't simply that a Pershing killed a Panther on camera. It's that the scene inverted 3 years of fear. An American tank took a frontal hit, survived, and returned lethal fire from the front. The myth cracked. And myths matter. German reports from March and April 1945 began to shift in tone. Units described American tanks with long guns, misidentified at first as a Sherman variant. Orders went out to collect details. Recognition charts couldn't explain what crews were facing because there was nothing to point to. No official silhouette to memorize, no manual to study. Tactics, built around the safety of frontal plates, suddenly looked like gambles. The psychology flipped fast. Tankers who once repaired thrown tracks under fire now abandoned vehicles for minor faults rather than risk a duel they no longer trusted. Recovery teams found Panthers and Tigers left on roadsides with fuel still sloshing in their tanks. Hesitation crept into trigger fingers. Was that another M4 or the new American Heavy? A heartbeat spent deciding was a heartbeat surrendered. And looming over every engagement was industrial reality. From 1942 through 1945, German industry built fewer than 2,000 Tigers of all variants. Panthers came in larger numbers, but factories were bombed, fuel was scarce, and quality control slipped as the war ground on. Meanwhile, the United States, untouched at home, converted car plants into armor foundries. Assembly lines poured out tanks in hours, not weeks. By the time Germany met Pershings in real numbers, the math had already chosen sides. This is where weapon statistics meet human hearts. Battlefields aren't just geometry and armor profiles, they're belief systems. For years, German crews believed they were chosen. Superior optics, superior training, superior steel. That belief carried them through retreats and shortages. When a handful of American heavy tanks arrived and proved the old rules could be broken, the last pillar of confidence cracked. Morale isn't a line item. It's an avalanche once it starts to slide. None of this says the Pershing won the war by itself. Only about 20 saw frontline action before Germany surrendered. Their statistical footprint was small, but symbols are force multipliers. The footage from Cologne raced through Allied channels. For American crews, it was a promise kept. You finally have a tank that can look the enemy in the eye. For German crews, it was a question they couldn't answer. What if the next silhouette isn't a Sherman? On the design side, evolution sprinted forward. Field modifications bolted spare armor onto mantlets and hulls. Experimental variants, like the long-gun Super Pershing, hinted at even greater reach. Post-war projects pushed guns to 105 mm and beyond, setting the stage for the next generation. The takeaway wasn't just a better tank. It was a new American confidence in pairing innovation with mass production. And that is the quiet, decisive lesson of Cologne. Democracies, messy, diverse, loud, can turn on a dime when the stakes demand it. The Pershing wasn't crafted in a single elite workshop. It was cast, welded, machined, and assembled by thousands of hands across a continent. It brought together engineers, tool and die lifers, train crews, dock workers, and tankers who'd spent too many nights knowing a long-barreled silhouette on the horizon could end them. Back in Cathedral Square, the smoke thins. The Panther's wreck glows, then dims to black. Eagle 7 idles a moment before rolling forward, its barrel still warm. The crew inside, Early, Smoyer, and the men who kept them alive, don't cheer. They breathe. They check systems. They scan the edges for another threat. In war, even miracles are followed by drills and checklists. But later, when the film reels spin in dark rooms far from the front, the message is clear. The hunters have found their match, and the fear that once pressed on Allied lungs has crossed the line. Years after the guns went silent, a Pershing stands in a museum. Across the room, a captured tiger looms like a memory. Visitors read placards and compare armor thickness, calibers, muzzle velocities. Useful details? Necessary facts. Yet what hangs in the air between those two machines is something harder to measure. The moment a story changed. It changed because a new tank arrived, because a camera was there to prove it, because thousands of ordinary people made extraordinary things on unforgiving timelines, and because belief, so powerful in war, finally met a counter-belief with steel behind it. Cologne didn't just record a kill, it recorded a turning of the mind, a whisper through a cracked periscope. Das ist kein Sherman. A heartbeat later, a flash, and the realization that the rules were no longer theirs to write.